I've always believed that to really understand a wine, you need to visit the place where it is grown, and many others see it the same way and are traveling to the Douro Valley. Gilberto Angrejas of the IDVP explains.
And with the tourism that you have nowadays, that brings more and more people to know the Douro Valley with three different regions, because you have a region, the Douro Valley, but you have Baixo Corgo, Cima Corgo, and Douro Superior, that are different regions with different terroirs that makes a huge diversity inside of our region.
To learn about this diversity, I headed to the Douro Superior, almost to the Spanish border, at Ramos Pinto's Quinta da Ervamoira, to meet with Thomas Rogerson, port blender for Ramos Pinto, who explained the terroir of this sub-region.
So we're at Quinta da Ervamoira in the Douro Superior, and we're in a very remote land, but what we have found is some reasonably flat land in the Douro, and we've able to plant everything on vertical planting systems. And with the scientific research that we've done, we're able to find great fruit and great freshness in the wines produced here. We're in an incredibly hot and dry zone in the Douro, and to be able to find that freshness is something quite incredible in the wines.
Obviously, when you're creating port wines in general, but specifically vintage port wines, it's an outstanding exercise in blending. Is it that freshness that this place brings to your ports, or is it something else?
So here what we find is great ripeness, but also balanced with that freshness. And the great thing is we're looking at many different aspects around us, many different varieties. So depending on what the year has given you, you might be more inclined to blend with some more Touriga Nacional from a high slope, or maybe a Touriga Franca from a low slope. And the great exercise is putting the puzzle together from all these pieces. But every year you will get something different.
From there, Thomas and I drove back through the insanely steep slope patchwork of vineyards along the Douro River to the heart of port growing, the Cima Corgo subregion. Here, we went to Ramos Pinto's Quinta Bom Retiro. After a hair-raising drive down the treacherous single-lane road, we arrived at Bom Retiro, and Thomas took me around to explain the importance of the place.
So now we're currently at Quinta do Bom Retiro, in the Cima Corgo, and we're on the Torto River, which flows into the Douro. And this is the quinta that has belonged to Ramos Pinto for over 100 years. So we've got some really old vine vineyards here, and we have field blends with many different varieties. And what we use mostly, these grapes are mostly red port grapes. So if we look to our left, we have one of the oldest vineyards in the Douro. These stone terraces will have been built over 200 years ago, and they remain here with vineyards that were planted after phylloxera. So these average 100 years in age now, and it's a field blend, and we have counted 63 different varieties. And now we know their exact location by GPS, and it's an incredible variety library that we have to study and to create a very special wine. From a winemaking perspective, you have almost three aspects to the vineyard. So you've got one slope here, one slope facing the Torto River, and then you've got the third aspect facing the hillside. But what we'll do is we'll define the date of the harvest and pick the whole plot at once and fill one lagar for foot treading, and this will have soft maceration during the fermentation. These quintas have been herbicide free since 2010. So it's great to see the natural wildlife growing in and with the vineyards around as well, and you got the natural mato with the trees that are indigenous to the Douro. So we allow those to remain as well, and the vineyard is thriving at the moment. So what we have here, the traditional granite lagars, where we ferment our top fruit from the estates. And what will happen is that we will either choose to destem or not destem the grapes. They'll come into here and we'll tread them for 4 hours every night until the sugar drops and hits the fortification point, which is when we have the desired residual sugar. And that is the time we rack the wine off the skins and add the aguardente, and where the wine will rest in the winery until the next spring. You have a lot of skin to liquid contact because of the lagar is quite wide and shallow. That allows us to extract the best out of the skins, so all of that color, the aroma, all the flavor, the tannin that you get in the skins is all great stuff, so we can extract that. We only have 3 to 5 days on the skins, so for short contact. So we have the cooling plates as well to bring the temperature in. We get really hot summers, really hot nights in August, so we can control the temperature, we control the sugar level. There's spontaneous fermentation, so yeasts from the vineyard, and we get great complexity from these granite lagars.
The whole idea behind the treading of the grapes is all very romantic and all, but what's the reality of it?
So the best we can do is get the men in here and tread for 4 hours every day.
4 hours.
And they have a specific system where they will march their way across the lagar to make sure everything's evenly tread. Then during the day, we'll get 3 or 4 more people in just to turn over the cap as the cap rises when the fermentation starts. Today, this is the best method because the foot is soft enough to break the skins without breaking the seeds, and you don't extract those harsh tannins.
It's hard to find people to do all that work. 4 hours.
So that's the most difficult thing that we have nowadays, and we have our plan B over there, which is a mechanical foot treader as well that helps us get through a whole vintage when we don't have the workforce.
There was quite a run of vintage decorations there in teens. There was 11 and then like 15, 16, 17 all right in a row. Mm-hmm. And then we haven't really had much since then. How's this year looking so far? I mean, obviously too early to tell.
Every year has been so different recently, so we're always on our toes. You have to be quick to react. So it rained a lot in December, January. So all the soils got the water they needed. And then it basically didn't rain all the way till end of May, June. We had some heavy rainfall now, and that presented a challenge for our Viti teams now to be on top of some disease pressure that might arise. But I think if we have a nice warm summer now and some cool nights towards the end, we could be in for a great vintage year. And I think after the 3 last years, I think we're due. We're due one.
Yeah, really. It's about time, huh? I've frequently said that visiting the vineyards where a wine is made and meeting the people who make it will make that wine mean even more to you. Well, after visiting these quintas in the Douro Valley and meeting with Thomas and others who make them, the wines of Ramos Pinto have made an indelible mark on my heart. Join me next time when I visit the historic offices and aging cellars of Ramos Pinto and get to taste some truly special wines.